Hey guys, and this is Sujayram, and here is Ayush Shekhar. And today's event is about building app in first app in Flutter. And yeah, let's get started.
Okay, so should we get started or should we wait for some other
Yeah,
people to
actually we are
join?
live. We can start.
Okay, cool, sure.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Ayush. As you know, if you don't know about me, I'm a Google developer expert for Flutter and Dart, and I'm also on the founding engineering team at Front Row here in India. And today we'll be covering about building your first app with Flutter and how you can grow as a mobile applications developer. We'll be going through what Flutter is, why you should choose Flutter, what are the advantages of building in Flutter, and what is the kind of edge that you have over other development technologies, and how you can make a successful career out of Flutter development. Let me know if my screen is visible, please.
Yeah, it's visible, sir.
Okay, thank you. Cool.
Thank you.
So yeah, we'll be talking about building your first app with Flutter. But what is Flutter, right? We have all been, I mean, you might have heard the term Flutter, you might have been intrigued by the term Flutter, you might have, you know, uh, on board you might have boarded the hype train around Flutter, because everyone today seems to be talking about Flutter. Everyone today seems to be talking about the cross development ecosystem in general. But what is Flutter, right? Flutter is actually a UI framework plus a cross platform app development SDK, or a software development kit, using which you can go ahead and create applications for the mobile platforms, that is Android and iOS, the most popular mobile platforms, for the web, for desktop platforms, that is macOS, Linux, Windows, and for embedded devices, and for a lot of different platforms. So you write one code, you create a single code base, and Flutter does its magic, and then you can run your applications on all of these different platforms. That is that is the fundamental definition of Flutter. That is what is at the core of Flutter. Flutter was actually created using Dart. Dart is a programming language that was developed in-house by Google, and it was for a long period of time it was used by Google in-house. But then they created Flutter with it. There was another framework. There was actually another framework called Angular Dart, using which you could create web applications using the Dart language. And now you can just do that using Flutter as well. Now there are a lot of other frameworks that have been built on Dart, using which you can create your backend systems, different types of applications, etc., etc. It is a very modern, futuristic programming language that derives its principles from some of the popular languages like Java, Kotlin, JavaScript, right? And takes the best of all worlds and gives you a very smooth and interesting developer experience. Just to go over some stats first, because I would rather finish up the presentation really fast and dive deep inside the code, so that we can look at actually how smooth the developer experience for Flutter is, and how easily we can go ahead and create Flutter applications, right? So just some of the stats in the developer surveys that have been released by the Flutter team. This number might be outdated right now, so you can just imagine how huge the current number would be. In one of the surveys that was released, the number of people who were actually using Flutter for development, for creating mobile applications, was more than 2 million in just a single quarter. And I'm proud to say that most of the and that the maximum number of Flutter developers from any country is from India, right? So this is the perfect opportunity for you to get on board with Flutter, to get yourself familiar with Flutter, and prepare yourself for what's coming in the future. The Flutter currently has more than 120,000 plus stars on GitHub, which makes it one of the top 10 most starred repositories on GitHub. That is one of the most popular repositories on GitHub. Interestingly, Flutter is actually an open source system. So Flutter is not the proprietary, product of Google, let's say, and the code base is not closed off to the world. It's actually open source, and so is the Dart language, because both the Dart language and the Flutter framework or the Flutter SDK are open source. The ecosystem around it has been blooming, like, has been blooming insanely, because when you open source a product, or when you open source a technology like Flutter, then the entire community gets a chance to, review the development, review the entire process, contribute to the process, help in making the development better, help in making the entire process better, right? And that is what has made Flutter what it is right now. For a technology as new as Flutter, the kind of, the kind of traction it has received from the entire developer community, and the kind of popularity it has gained in just such a short period of time is amazing. I mean, why would you not want to use Flutter, unless and until you have, like, for example, it doesn't make sense for a JavaScript team, or if it's a big corporate giant, and they always have, they anyways have a team of skilled JavaScript developers, then you would all, you would not want to invest heavily in migrating, the skills, or in learning and development towards Flutter. Then you might want to prefer React Native, or you might not to want to prefer a technology that is more in line with the current skill set of your company, or your employees. But as a student, as someone who's learning out, right, who's actually growing their skills right now, who's exploring the different technologies, exploring the different horizons that they can pursue their career in, as a student, as a developer who's just starting out your career, Flutter is definitely a go-to choice right now. Because if, you know, we're going to see, I'm not going to spoil the show for you, we're just going to see. But also when we talk about Flutter, when we talk about the good things that Flutter, can do for you, the good that Flutter can give you, we also need to talk about some of the realities that you are going to be facing as you become a Flutter developer, or as you try to solve more complicated problems, try to adhere to more sophisticated use cases. Then you will be facing certain issues that you will have to tackle on your own. Not, I mean, you won't be alone, definitely. You will have to put an initiative or put an effort from your side, but the entire Flutter community would be there to help you out. And actually, that is one of the primary reasons that I am so vocal about Flutter, that I, you know, act as an evangelist for Flutter. That is because of the Flutter community, and the enthusiastic participation that we see from each and every person in the Flutter community, in the Flutter ecosystem every single day. For example, if you get stuck with a bug, and you're not able to solve it, you're stuck with a problem, you are not able to find the solution for it, what to do, how to do it. I mean, you feel like the walls are closing in on you and you don't know what to do. You might miss a deadline, you might not be able to finish your project, you might not do well in an interview. I mean, for anything, any use case that it might be, if you're stuck in a problem, you can always get help online. I mean, you can post on our forums, you can post on Stack Overflow, you can just put up your question on Twitter, and there there is ample documentation, there are ample articles, there are ample videos that have been created by various members of the Flutter community, not just the Flutter team, although a huge number of resources are also available officially from the Flutter team. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There is a colossal source of knowledge and resources for you to start learning Flutter and getting onboarded with Flutter, because of the thriving ecosystem and the thriving community that has been built around Flutter, right? And it's not that someone is cherry picking people and putting them in the Flutter community. There is no monetary incentive involved. It's just that people, every single person who wants to or tries to add value to the Flutter community by either creating content or helping people, is just trying to give back to the ecosystem that added value to their life. So, for example, I currently work as a full time software developer working with Flutter. right? So because of Flutter, it was possible for me to pursue a career or to start a career in mobile app development. I mean, it made it easy for me. So similarly, now it is my opportunity to give back to the Flutter community by whatever means possible, right? And this is because Flutter added value to my life. I'm doing the same for the other developers, and that is how this community has been built with utmost, you know, concern and consideration, and just our love for Flutter. So yeah, that is about the Flutter community. And when you step out into development, and when you start your development journey, you will be facing certain issues. You will go to the Flutter official repository on GitHub, and you will see that, hey, almost 9,000 issues are open on the repository. How is this possible? I mean, is this even stable? Yeah, Flutter is definitely stable. It is completely production ready, and you are, free to use it for a variety of very sophisticated use cases. The thing that you won't see right there, or you won't pay attention to, might be, is the fact that there are more than 45,000 issues that have already been closed by by the Flutter team, and they have been resolved. Now, why the number is so high for issues in the Flutter on the Flutter repository is because the friction of creating an issue is extremely low. Is extremely low. I mean, it's not that you have to go through a long list of information that you have to provide, or a very strict or stringent protocol that you have to provide, otherwise your issue won't get solved. I mean, the entire Flutter ecosystem is so approachable, or so considerate, that they take in mind each and every person who wants to or has been using Flutter. And because of that, it is very easy to create issues on Flutter, and it is very easy to get them solved as well. It's not that because so many issues are open, yours won't get noticed. It's not like that. I have opened multiple issues on the Flutter GitHub repository, and I've got them solved, right? Some sooner, some later, but they eventually get solved, right? And you always have the entire community at your disposal to help you out. So, just putting it out there. But why should you be using Flutter? I mean, what is the reason? I mean, obviously, I gave you certain reasons. I told you that, hey, the Flutter community is amazing. Flutter is an open source technology that Google created. It is built with Dart. But there are some other reasons as well. Flutter makes your development experience fast. The apps built with Flutter are smooth, and Flutter is easy. It is easy to learn. The learning curve that is involved with Flutter is not so steep. Okay. I mean, obviously, you have to put in the hours, you have to put in the effort that is required, but it is not so difficult to get started with Flutter. It is actually pretty easy, and you will see just how easy it is right now in a few moments from now. So, first, let's look at the word fast. The development experience with Flutter is really fast, and not just the development experience, but the performance of your apps as well. I mean, because what Flutter does is that whatever code you write in Dart, that is then compiled to the native ARM machine code for that particular platform, right? So for Windows, whatever the Windows native ecosystem is, for Android, for whatever the Android native ecosystem is, similar for iOS, macOS, Linux, web, etc., etc., right? So for all of these different platforms that you are able to target using Flutter, your Dart code is going to be compiled to the native ARM machine code, and using that your app is going to run, right? Because that is possible using Flutter, the app is really performant. And in fact, to tell you a fun story. This was actually one of the factors why I got into Flutter development in the beginning, because when I saw the some of the initial presentations of Flutter back in 2018, um, the one thing that stood out every single time was 60 fps. At that point of time, we didn't used to have so many 90 hertz 90 hertz devices, 120 hertz devices, or high refresh rate devices, right? So at that point of time, when you had an application application that promised 60 fps at every with every single render of its screens, then that was amazing. It was mind blowing. The apps were so fast, and at that point of time, just to reiterate on this fact, not a lot of cross platform app development frameworks could actually claim this, and Flutter was actually one of the first to claim this, that hey, you create your app with Flutter and it is going to be running at 60 fps minimum, and if it's not, then it's probably something in development that you can definitely optimize. And guess what, you have documentation for that as well. You have documentation for performance tuning offered directly by the Flutter team, and it also has resources for you. I mean, there are a lot of development tools that you can use for profiling, to find out which part of your widget tree. Everything in Flutter is a widget. We'll be getting to that once we start our development. So there are a lot of internal tools that let you track your build times for each of your widgets, each of your renders on the screen. You can do performance profiling. You can do network profiling. You can basically you know analyze each and every aspect of your application, and you can see how you can improve all of those individual things, right? So that's really amazing. That was about fast. Second, the entire workflow. I mean, when we talk about development, generally what people think is that okay, you create beautiful applications, right? But that's not all. I mean, when you talk about mobile app development, it is definitely not all. It is just one, it is a very considerable part of the process, yes, but it is just a part of the process. The entire process actually is much larger than, it just seems to, than just creating a beautiful app. It is actually the fact that you can, go ahead and write reusable code, maintainable code, code that can scale up, right? You can go ahead and create UIs faster and in a more efficient way. You can move on to a more agile workflow, wherein nowadays Flutter has actually become one of the most promising choices for all the new startups out there, because every new startup right now, when they're evaluating which technology to use to build their product faster and faster, smoother, in a beautiful way, better, Flutter is the first choice that comes up. But why is that? I mean, why is that? Because as a startup, you can't spend a lot of time in the first iteration of your product. You need to get it out there into the wild, into the hands of your users, and you need to let them test it out. You need to let them experience your application. You want to make an impression on the user, and you want to establish product market fit as fast as possible, right? And so that you can eventually get feedback from the users, from your early users, and you can keep on iterating and reiterating on on the feedback that you receive from your early users, and take your product up a notch and up a level, right? So that is how all the startups are building right now. You build a product fast, you get it into the hands of the users, you create a feature, you get it into the hands of the users, you get feedback from them, you analyze your analytics data, you see user journeys, you see where people are dropping off, what can be done better, what is not working for you, what is working for you, and you want to immediately make changes, you want to reiterate on all of it, and you want to just keep on improving your product continuously, right? That is the process of continuous improvement. That is possible only when your product pipeline is free flowing, right? That is possible only when your product pipeline is free flowing, and that is where Flutter comes to your advantage. You don't have to spend a lot of time working, just getting that UI right, or just making that particular functionality or that particular interaction work. All that is really easy with Flutter, really easy with all the inbuilt widgets it offers, and a skilled mobile application developer, a person who is skilled with Flutter, who has done, who has practiced a lot with Flutter, who has done some cool projects with Flutter, you'll find it really easy to create all of that UI, that those interactions, and whatever is the requirement for the product, right? So it makes the entire process of development, right from where the idea is scoped out and picked up to where it is being executed, really smooth and really fast. Third, it's easy. I mean, just imagine, why is Flutter so famous among student developers? Why is it so famous among, college students, people who are just starting out into with their development journey, people who are just starting out, with writing their first lines of code? Why is it so popular? Because it's really easy. It's really easy. The learning curve is not that difficult. If you are if you're already familiar with some other development ecosystem, like if you've already been, maybe let's say a front end web developer, or if you're a React developer, or if you're already creating mobile applications using Android, for Android using Java or Kotlin, right? So if you are aware of the basics of how a development process works, Flutter is going to be a breeze for you. But even if you're not, hey, it doesn't really matter. You can always, go ahead, put in that effort, and pick up Flutter, as your first framework, or Dart as your first language, and it is still going to be an amazing experience for you. I mean, we're just going to be hopping onto our live coding right now, and we'll see. Also, now we're coming on to the Flutter aspect of things. We're coming on to the Flutter POV of things, wherein we are going to be, analyzing what Flutter is, how Flutter is, and what makes Flutter different, so different. Okay, so okay, just read the quote on the screen. Can you ever imagine a developer saying, "I love spending hours of my time trying to reinvent the wheel. I wish the world didn't have any pre-built components." Can you believe it? Is that even possible? Is that possible that someone, I mean, anyone, any developer in the world would say something like this? I mean, obviously, why do you want to go ahead and reinvent the wheel? I mean, if you have something, you would always want to build on top of that, right? You want to be more concerned about the features that you're building, or your own product and the use cases that it caters to, rather than solving trivial problems. I mean, you don't want to render single pixels on the screen and then create a rectangle. What you want is to create a button, not a rectangle. You should not have to have, you should not have to paint each of the individual elements of a button. So you'll first make a rectangle, then you make maybe some kind of a drop shadows, then you'll give it some kind of an elevation, then you'll handle the splash effect when you click on the button, etc., etc. If you, I mean, if you just want to do it, if you want to customize it completely, then you should be able to do it. Perfect, agreed. But in most cases, in 99% of the cases, you just want a button, that's it, right? You don't want to do all of those things. That's where Flutter comes in, and that's where the existing library of widgets that Flutter has comes in. Because Flutter has so many pre-built components adhering to the material design system that you can just plug and play these widgets. You can create your UI elements so fast and so accurately that it's just going to work. It's just going to work. You'll see. You'll see. Also, in this Google I/O that was held online, sadly because of Corona. No problem. Anyways, this Google I/O, which was held online and it happened recently, not recently, a few months ago, a couple of months ago. Um, we saw that the latest version of Flutter was launched, Flutter 2.2. With Flutter 2.2, a lot of really, brave and ambitious updates have come into the picture. Dart is now a null safe language with sound null safety. So Flutter has also now migrated to, take the advantages of the null safety paradigm presented to it by Dart. So that's cool. Um, and they've also provided a lot of internal tooling for you to migrate your existing projects to null safe projects. We'll also be talking about null safety a bit if we get time, um, and we'll be doing that. So that's the latest version of Flutter. That's the latest from Flutter world, and I know what you're waiting for. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into the projects because I have 2.6 installed on my machine, but the process is the same. Cool. So let's just dive right into the code. Yeah, I think after this, the only slides that I have is just thank you and my social links. So we'll come to that at the end. Okay. Perfect. Let me quickly share my desktop so that I can start presenting. Okay. So the first thing that you'll have to do is, um, yeah, just let me refactor out this Chrome tab so that you don't keep seeing the StreamYard thing. Okay, perfect. Now, the first thing that we want to do is I want to show you some of the essential websites that you'll be interacting with. So this is the website, this is the official Flutter website, wherein, I mean, see, just look at the website. Even the website is beautiful. So yes, you can design beautiful apps with Flutter, and just let's just walk through the website by a bit. Flutter is made by Google, and you interestingly you can actually try Flutter right here in your browser. You can just edit this code. I can run this without any problem. It will just run. So see, this is a Flutter application running right inside your browser. That is how cool Flutter is, and there are interesting examples. So I can run the Fibonacci program. See the Fibonacci program, then I can run the counter program. If you keep on clicking this, then the counter will keep on increasing. So all of these simple applications are available right here, right in your browser, and you can see it. And interestingly, there is also something called dartpad.dev that you can go ahead and use, and you can write all of your code over here. You can basically create a new dartpad. You can either just write a new dart program, or you can also create a new Flutter application, and it will just run in your browser. You can just do the coding over here on the left, you click run, and it will just run on the right. See, that's amazing, right? No installation required, nothing. Just try it out in your browser first before you go ahead and install Flutter. I think we've gone through all of this. A lot of big companies have also started using Flutter, and that's really amazing. It's really insane. So eBay has been using Flutter, BMW has been using Flutter, Capital One, Tencent, Alibaba Groups, Square, all of these companies are now using Flutter. So it's amazing, amazing, really amazing. Cool. So the first thing that you would have to do is that once you open flutter.dev, you'll have to go to the docs section over here. Once you go to the docs section, then you click on get started. So all of these are the different sections that you have in the documentation of Flutter. I mean, let me just put it out there. The Flutter documentation is one of the best for any technology that I have ever seen. One of the best, absolute best. Why is that? Because just look at it, man. It's so organized. So there are a lot of cookbooks, there are Flutter code samples, there are videos that you can watch for Flutter. There is a widgets catalog, the entire widgets catalog of Flutter. You have the API documentation, and you have the getting started guide. So if you go through cookbooks, there are so many use cases for which the Flutter team has created cookbooks, and you can just go to one of those, and you'll get step-by-step instructions. Like these are just like tutorials that you can follow to get those use cases in order. There are so many of them, so many of them. See, then there are Flutter samples. All of these are sample applications that have been created using Flutter. See, so many sample applications, and you can go ahead and try these out. You can look at look at the code bases. Oh, these are code books. Okay, till here I think. Yeah, till here are the samples. Then there are demos, etc. And you can all of these are open source. All of these are open source, by the way. You can just go ahead and look at the code for these applications as well. Then there is the official Flutter YouTube channel. It has more than 300,000 subscribers. That's insane. It's more than 300,000 subscribers. That's amazing for any, official tech channel, or for, for the official YouTube channel of a tech product. That's amazing. Um, Also, we have, I think if you go to playlists right here in the official channel, you will see that we'll have a playlist for widget of the week. See this playlist. This is my favorite playlist, by the way. This is my absolute favorite playlist of all time. Why? Why you ask? Because it has 107 videos of of a particular widgets, and the way, you know how those widgets and their implementations have been explained so beautifully and in such a crisp and intuitive manner. It's amazing. I mean, just go through this playlist, if you and chances are that if you're going to be using a widget and you want to know more about it, you will find the widget over here in Flutter widget of the week. Also, another, my second most favorite playlist is the boring Flutter development show. So this playlist has 59 videos, and these are long videos, by the way. These are not like 3-4 minute videos like how you would find on widget of the week. These are long videos. Some of these videos are 90 minutes in length. Some of these videos maybe less, maybe more, but like long videos. And why is that? Because in these videos, Flutter team members themselves, they, sit together and they pick up a use case. Like, for example, if they want to create an app, right, which fetches data from some hacker, let's say the Hacker News API, and shows it on the inside the app, right? So they just pick up a use case like that. Then they set up the entire app. So you can literally see official Flutter team members, people who create and bring Flutter to you. They're sitting there on, in front of you, and they show you how real app development looks like with Flutter. So you get, a very clear and transparent and honest picture into how a development journey is going to look like. So that's really amazing. Then, yeah, we have the Flutter widget catalog. In this is also this is also categorized actually, because there are so many Flutter widgets that you can't list down all of them just like that over here. You need to categorize them, you need to label them out so that they are easily, they are indexable and people can search for them easily, right? For example, right now I know that if I have to look at some of the input widgets, I can just go over here and I can see that, okay, these are the input widgets, right? So like that. Yeah, then this is the API documentation. This is the entire Flutter API documentation. Okay, that's really amazing. You can go through all of these different sections, and you will find on the right, you will find all of the different classes inside this particular library. So for example, I've opened the Dart async library, and in the Dart async library, you can just find all the different classes that have been declared and are usable from the Dart async library. It's amazing. I mean, there's just full transparency because it is an open source technology. You have full and complete transparency over everything. Okay, coming back, circling back, we open flutter.dev, we clicked on docs, then we click on get started. Over here, now this is not the platform that you're targeting, but the platform that you are currently on. So for example, if you are going to be creating Flutter applications, or if you're going to be coding on a Windows laptop or on a Windows computer, then you will click Windows. If you are going to be working on a Mac OS, on an Apple laptop, on a Mac OS, then you would be selecting Mac OS, and so on and so forth, right? So for example, right now I'm on Mac OS, so I will just click on Mac OS, and then I will have all the different instructions that are required for me to install Flutter and set it up and get it up and running, right? So all of that is over here. All of that is over here. Every single thing that you need is over here. And on your left, there are all of these, interesting documentation, interesting documentation that you can find, the which will answer most of your questions. And unlike general, I mean, there is this general view that we have of technical documentation, that it is going to be not so good, it is going to be boring, etc., etc. But On the contrary, actually, the Flutter documentation is actually really crisp and to the point. So it feels like whenever you're going through documentation, it generally feels like you're reading a well-written article and not some, traditional tech documentation. So you want to read more of it. You'd want to read more of it if you're really interested in it. So that's definitely a plus. Um, cool, perfect. We'll just go to our terminal now. So I'm just skipping to the part where I actually have Flutter installed and ready to code. So you can do the same over here. Just select, whatever system that you're working on right now and follow the instructions and set up Flutter. Okay, really simple. Cool. Once you have it set up, then you'll have to open up your terminal and I will just cd into my projects directory and then I will create a new Flutter project. So let's just abbreviate new Flutter project. So what can be the abbreviation of a new Flutter project? Maybe it can be NFP. Let's say my the name of my project is going to be NFP. So you just write Flutter space create space NFP, and the Flutter tool will do the rest. It will create a new Flutter project for you. Cool, perfect. Once the new Flutter project is created for you, you can just cd into that directory in which the new Flutter project was created. So cdnfp, perfect, cdnfp, and we'll open it inside our preferred IDE. So for Flutter, there are certain officially supported IDEs like IntelliJ, Android Studio, VS Code, right? For these, you have the official Flutter and Dart extensions that make your development life so much easier, right? So I'm currently going to be using VS Code because I generally use VS Code, but you can also use IntelliJ, Android Studio, etc. Right? So cool. Now this is the a new Flutter project that was created for us. This is an absolutely brand new Flutter project that was created for us, and we can see that these we can just go over the folders that we have. We can just go over the folders that we have, and we'll see what the significance of each and every folder and each and every file is. Perfect. The first two, the .dart tool and .idea folders, these are system generated folders for your, specific to your local system. These are going to help out when you're running the project and when you're developing. For these two, these two are really important folders, the Android folder and the iOS folder. Remember when I told you that Flutter is so fast and Flutter is so performant because whatever code that you're going to be writing in Dart, that is going to be compiled down to the ARM native machine code for that particular platform. Now, see, because I'm going to be using my Flutter project for two platforms, Android and iOS. We can see that you have the two native folders as well, and these are actually independent native projects for these two platforms. So for example, if you look at Android over here, this is an independent Android project. Actually, I can actually right click on this and click on, if I click on open in Android Studio, it will actually open up in Android Studio just like a normal Android project. Similarly for iOS, I can just right click on it and click on open in Xcode, and it will open the project in Xcode just like a normal iOS project. You can also run your Flutter apps from Xcode. It's amazing, right? It's really amazing. So you have, if you were targeting more platforms, for example, if you're targeting, let's say, Windows, if you're targeting Linux, if you're targeting Mac OS, then all of those three different platform folders would also be here. If you're targeting web, then that folder would also be here, right? So whenever you need to customize some platform specific things, or whenever you need to write maybe some platform specific code and maybe link it back or link to it from your Flutter application, then you can do that using something called method channels uh, via Flutter. So that's amazing, right? Flutter gives you the enhanced developer experience, the speed, the thrill of development, and everything. But on those rare occasions when you actually want to have that customizability or that flexibility to go ahead and change something, go ahead and change something with Flutter, or on the native platforms, on the very specific native platform, then you can actually do it. You can do it using the method channels, right? That is why these native folders exist, because these are all independent native projects that your app is going to be targeting. Cool. This is actually the most important folder, I would say. This is the lib folder, in which you right now see a main.dart file. This is where all your Flutter code is going to go. Whatever code that you're going to be writing, sorry for that, whatever code that you're going to be writing is going to go over here in, in your lib folder. All your source code for your application is going to be inside your uh, lib folder. Then this is the test folder. This is, you can use it for writing your tests. So currently, there is a boilerplate test code has already been generated for you. That's there, so you can see all the tests are written over here. So this is the test folder. Then there is a git ignore folder, in which you can specify which files you want to ignore when you are using version control using git. Then there is a .metadata and .packages file. These are also generated files. This is also a generated file. Then one of the most important files is the pubspec.yaml file. I can't stress it enough how important this is, because the pubspec.yaml file is a very important file. It is going to be the configuration of your application. So right from the name and description of your application to the versions that your application is going to have, both the version name and the version number. So for example, if the version name of your application is 1.0.0 and the build number or the version number is 1, then you can specify that over here in the pubspec.yaml file. And not just that, this file, okay, let's go over this file one, and the different fields that you can set one by one. So you have the name of your application, you have the description for your application. If for with Flutter and for Flutter, you can actually create packages and plugins also. So right now what we have created is an app. Okay, we have created a new Flutter project that will be serving as an app. But what you can also do is you can create a package or a plugin with Flutter, and you can publish it to this amazing website called pub.dev. Yes, you can publish it over here on this amazing website called pub.dev. This is like the NPM for Flutter, like how NPM is to JavaScript, and Node. Similarly, pub.dev is for Flutter and Dart. So you have all of the different packages and most of the packages and most of the plugins that are created for the Flutter ecosystem and the Dart ecosystem by the community and by the official teams at Google are all published over here. This just makes your package, it gives more visibility to your package, and it just makes it very, very easy for the Flutter tool to just pick up the code for your package and bundle it along with any Flutter project. So some of the popular packages you can see over here. These are the Flutter favorite packages. These are some of the most popular packages that we are going to be using. For example, if you want to render an SVG image inside your Flutter project, then you can do that using the Flutter SVG package. If you want to, let's say, if you want to access the um, um, you can do a lot of things. So for example, if you want an HTTP client for making API requests, getting the response back and doing a lot of other stuff, then you can use the DO package. There is also a package named HTTP that does the same thing. So you can integrate Firebase with a Flutter project using all the different Firebase packages that are there, that you can find on pub.dev. And there are so many more packages, just so many more packages, right? It's amazing. Cool. Coming back to our pubspec.yaml file, we see that, over here, you can see that, yeah, right now we are not creating a package or a plugin. We are creating a Flutter, we have created a normal Flutter project that is an application. It's like an app that is going to be using packages and plugins, but not going to serve as a package or a plugin for some other project. So we have put publish to as none. Okay, we can remove this line if we want, if we were creating a package and if we wanted to publish that package to our pub.dev website. Cool. Then there is one very important field, that is the version field, where you can specify the version name, that is 1.0.0, and the version number, that is 1. It is also links to the respective documentation for the version names and numbers for both Android and iOS, so that's cool. Then is your Dart environment. This is the Dart SDK environment constraints that I'm using currently. This Flutter project can run if my Dart SDK version is anywhere greater than equal to 2.7.0 and less than 3.0. So perfect. Then come our dependencies, right? So here are our dependencies. Obviously, the first dependency that we have is on Flutter. I mean, without Flutter as a dependency, our Flutter project won't really make any sense, right? So yeah, the first dependency that we have is on the Flutter SDK itself. We are dependent on the Flutter SDK in order to be able to run our application. Then a dependency that is already added for you, which you can remove by the way if you're not targeting the iOS platform, is Cupertino icons. So it gives you you can actually search for Cupertino icons on pub.dev. So any dependency that you add, you can actually search for it on pub.dev, because most probably you'll be adding it from here itself. So this is an asset repository containing the default set of icons used by the used by Flutter's Cupertino widgets. So when you are going to be creating your app with Flutter, and if you want to compile it to an iOS build, then the default icons that your widgets are going to be using for the iOS platform come from this package. Okay. Perfect, cool. Also, if you want to add a new dependency, let's say if you want to add any new dependency, all you have to do is just open it up. Whatever dependency you want to add, just open it up. Let's say, for example, if I want to add FFI as a dependency, right? I just go to the page for this package. I'll go to installing. Either I can run these commands, or all I can do is, if I'm using VS Code or Android Studio, uh, like any integrated development environment that has the Flutter and Dart extensions installed, all I'll have to do is just copy this line over here, go to paste, and as soon as I paste the dependency over here along with the version, and I would definitely recommend that you always provide the version to your dependencies, so that you know absolutely for a fact which state the package was in when you included it, so you do not have any surprises, right? And as soon as I save this, this prospect.yaml file, the flutter pub get command will automatically get run. Right now, this won't execute because I've added the latest dependency from FFI for the FFI package, but I'm not on the latest version of Flutter. So it requires me to be on the latest version of Flutter or on a null safe version of Flutter, but I don't have that right now. That is why this didn't get added. But essentially what it does is that it runs a command for you, and that command is flutter pub get, similar to a command we had used flutter create, right, in order to create a new project. Similarly, we have the flutter pub get command that is going to be fetching all the dependencies from the remote URL for you. Maybe it can be pub.dev, it can be GitHub, or any source from where you are going to be adding your dependencies. It is going to fetch the dependencies from there and then add it to your project. Okay. The next section is the dev dependencies section, wherein you can add the dependencies that are required for your development purposes. These are the dependencies that are going to be fetched inside your project and that are going to be used while you are actually developing your Flutter application. But these are not going to be bundled with your final application that you're going to be installing on the different platforms that you're targeting. So if you're creating an APK for your Android platform, these dependencies are not going to be there. These are just for your development purposes. This will make your development like easier, right? Then there is an entire section for Flutter itself, in which you can go ahead and add assets. Okay, you can you have users material design true, so that you have access to all the material icons in your project. then you can uncomment these lines and you can go ahead and add bundle images, music, fonts, or whatever you want. Like for example, you also have an example of adding fonts over here, right? So you can bundle all of these custom things along with your app. So if you have, let's say you want to have a logo, or if you have a custom icon that you want to use in your app, you just have to declare it over here just like this. And as soon as you hit save, or if you run the command flutter pub get, it will fetch those dependencies and bundle them with your project, right? Simple, really simple. Cool. So right now I'm not adding any dependencies, but you can. And for all of these purposes, your one-stop solution is your pubspec.yaml file. Perfect. Now let's just do one thing. Let's just run the Flutter application and see how does it look. How does the Flutter application look in the first go? So I'm just going to run the application on my phone, and I'm going to share my screen and show you how the Flutter application looks. Let's hope it runs soon. Also, just for a matter of fact, when you have just installed Flutter, and if you run your new Flutter project for the very first time, then it may take some time for it to execute. That is because it has to download and set up all of the infrastructure that it requires to get up and running on your system. But that is just a one time thing. From the next time, you'll see that it is really smooth and it is really fast, right? It is going to still be smooth. It might just take a bit of a time to get up and running, because and it also depends upon your internet connection as to how fast it can get the data that it needs from the internet. So yeah, all of those things are there. Don't worry, these are not errors, these are just warnings. Perfect. The app is now getting installed on my phone, and I'll just copy my screen so that you guys can see. Perfect. See, we already have a fully functional Flutter application installed on our phone, and the code for this was generated by default when you ran the Flutter create command. So you can see that it has an app bar, it has this text counter over here, it also has a floating action button. Let's see what happens when we click this floating action button. If you go ahead and click this floating action button a lot of times, you will see that the counter over here is increasing. Now let me show you the interesting things about Flutter and what makes it so amazing for to work with. I can just go ahead and change the text that is written over here. So you have pushed the button this many times, or have you? I don't, I don't know if it makes sense, but I just wrote it. See, you have changed a part of your app, you have changed a part of your code, you have changed a part of your app, and the state is still maintained. So whatever state you had, for example, if this counter was at 19, it's still at 19, yet the change in your code is reflected. This is what we call stateful hot reload, and this is a blessing. I mean, I can't stress enough on the fact how as to how much of a blessing it is. Okay, let me give you a small example. Let's imagine that you're working on a dashboard screen for your mobile application. Okay, and in order to get to that dashboard screen, you need to first log in. Imagine every time you change something in the code for that dashboard screen, your app got refreshed completely and you had to log in again and again and again. Can you imagine how irritating that would be? Obviously it would be so irritating, because your authentication state should not get affected if you're not making any changes to that, right? The only the part of the code to which you're making a change, only the reflection of that part of the code should get actually changed. And that is what happens when we do stateful hot reloading. And when Flutter does stateful hot reloading, the state of your application is maintained and retained, and only the parts that have been changed via code are actually changed on the app as well. Okay, so right now we have, this plus button, the floating action button. I can actually go ahead and change the color scheme for the application. I can do so many things. So for example, right now the primary swatch is blue. I can change the primary swatch to green, and the my application is just transformed in colors, right? So and as you can see, okay, just one last concept before we leave for the day, because I think we've gone through the fundamentals of Flutter, why you should be choosing Flutter, and how it can, help you out. We have gone through the folder structure of Flutter, the organization, and the role of each and every file. So I think this is a good starting point for you to go ahead, install Flutter, set it up on your system, and dive right into the docs, dive right into some of the courses that you can find online, and just get started with your development journey with Flutter. One last concept that I could give you is the concept of widgets. So everything in Flutter, every building block in Flutter is going to be a widget. It is either going to be a stateless widget like this one, or it can be a stateful widget like this one, right? The difference between a stateless widget and a stateful widget is that a stateless widget does not have a state of its own. Okay, I know the we knew that, right? It was very, I mean, it was quite self-explanatory. But hear me out. So, uh, a stateless widget cannot have a state of its own. For example, you can't maintain, if the widget is inside the widget itself, if the counter has been pressed these many times, because it won't know. I mean, even if you're able to maintain that, you won't be able to tell the UI part of it. You won't be able to tell the build method, ki, hey, this variable has now changed. Can we please, change, can we please re-render, or can we please reprocess everything to reflect this change or update this change on the device? You can't do that with stateless widgets, but you can do that with stateful widgets, because stateful widgets are, you know they can be aware themselves. You can have different variables, like for example, if you look at the stateful widget, you will see that it has in the state class, it has this variable called int counter equal to 0, and it has this int counter variable. What you can do is that whenever this increment counter, this function is executed, let me just zoom into this. So whenever this, you have this variable called counter, which the default value for which is 0. Whenever you execute this function, which is by the way executed as soon as you click on this plus icon over here, this increment counter is executed. Whenever this increment counter is executed, what you're essentially doing is that you are incrementing the value of this counter by 1. Okay, you are incrementing the value of this counter by 1. Let's do some interesting thing. Let's just, counter is equal to, sorry, counter is equal to underscore counter into 2. Okay, so now what we're doing is not it's not that we're adding 1. Now we're just multiplying it by 2. So right now this is 24. If I do this, it will become 48. If I do this, 96, 192, 384, 768, 1536, then 3072, 6144, 12288, 25536, etc., etc., right? 25,576, etc., etc. It will just go on. So 24,576. Okay, my math is bad. I agree, I accept. Cool. So, you can make these kind of changes inside stateful widgets, wherein you can manipulate the state of your widget and you can have it reflect on your UI. So that is the basic difference between stateless widgets and stateful widgets. And this, my friends, was our, you know, was our session for the day. I think I've given you a good starting point, but now the ball is in your court. It is up to you to go ahead, get yourself acquainted with Flutter, step into the Flutter community, see how welcoming the place is, and get get on with starting your career as a Flutter developer, as a mobile application developer with Flutter, and all the very best.
So there are some questions regarding Flutter. So, I
Ha,
will
sure,
just share
definitely.
you. Yeah, I will just share you in the private section in the StreamYard. You can just visit there.
Yep, sure. I can't see those questions currently. They're not appearing over here. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'm now
Yeah,
able to see them. How to add a card in list view by clicking the raise button and delete a card in list view by clicking the raise button. Okay, we might not be able to do that live right now, but I can drop a link that Sujai will share with you. You can go over the implementation of list views, okay, and that should be you should be able to do that. In fact, I can give you a hint, and you can actually Google for that. You will be able to find it. Just Google how to create a to-do app with Flutter. You will find a lot of different implementations of how people have created to do applications, and this is exactly what is done over there. You When you add a new to do, it gets added to a list, and once you mark that to do as done, it gets deleted from the list. So if you Google for how to create a to do app in Flutter, you should be able to get this use case. Google Map API is working on emulator, but it is not working on real device. Why? I mean, this is a very specific question. You'll have to go over the implementation of the Google Maps API, and see what the problem is. Uh, some pointers that you can check right now is that if your Google Maps API key is correct or not, if your if the implementation that you've done is correct or not. Please also go ahead and check the issues part for the Google Maps API or the plugin that you're using for the Google Maps API, and see if any similar issues have been recorded. If not, I think you can get help from Stack Overflow, or some of the forums that we have. Just put it up over there, and someone who has definitely worked on the same or would have faced a similar problem would definitely get back to you. I mean, this is a very specific question. I don't think I have the answer for this. How to implement Java code in Flutter? I mean, in order to write Java code, okay, so if you want to write Java code to adhere to some custom use case on your Android side of things, right? So you can just write the Java code inside the Android folder that I have shown. Now, whenever you create a new Flutter project, you also have an Android folder. If you go to the Android app, SRC, library, main, right? If you go towards to that part in your Android project, inside your Flutter project, where you have the Java files, okay, you will have a main activity.java file. Over there you can also go ahead and create your own Java files, uh, fulfill whatever use case you have. You can just implement whatever feature you want using Java over there. And then what you can do is that you can just Google for method channels in Flutter. Then what you can do is you can create a method channel, and using that you can call that method channel to execute that Java code from your Flutter application. How to play a playlist songs from Firestore? Really simple. You just have to connect your Firestore with Flutter using the Cloud Firestore plugin that you have in Flutter. Then you have to fetch the data from your Firestore, and based on the data, for example, in your data there would be a URL, right? You would be storing the URL of the song, right? So all you have to do is that get that data from Firestore into your Flutter application using the Cloud Firestore plugin. And once you have the URL, then you can use one of the available audio player plugins on pub.dev. So if you go to pub.dev, you search for audio, you will find there are a lot of audio player plugins that are available, which can play audio files from network URLs. So just fetch the network URL from Firestore and pass it on to an audio player plugin, and just hit the dot play function in that audio player plugin, and you'll be able to play the song.
yeah, the questions are over, sir. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching the live. Yeah, bye.
Cool, thank you, bye bye.
Bye.